Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of Now Our Watch Begins. My name is Adam. I'm here with my good friend Charlie. This whole podcast is going to be about the fact that Charlie has never seen Game of Thrones before. And I, as someone who watched it from start to finish as it was airing, cannot stand for that. And I said to Charlie the other day, I was like, now is the perfect time to watch Game of Thrones for someone who's never seen it. Because who's talking about it anymore? No one. I said to you the other day, I was like, have you ever seen a fandom drop off as quickly as Game of Thrones?
Yeah, just one. Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
From what I understand, it is the live action Attack on Titan, which just nosedives at one point.
Yeah, after a certain point, like, everyone stayed watching it, even when we get to them rocky seasons. But then, as soon as the finale happened, like, poof, gone.
Unlike Walking Dead, which just sort of dropped.
Yeah, that was. I tried with Walking Dead. Maybe we can do that if we finish Game of Thrones. Maybe we can look at Walking Dead. But that was one for me. After season 3 or 4, I just lost interest with Walking Dead.
By all accounts, it was like 8 seasons worth after 4. It ended at 4.
Yeah, genuinely, it could have. But Game of Thrones, Charlie, based on George R.R. Martin's hit novel from the mid-90s, I believe.
Early 90s.
Wasn't a big seller in the mid-90s, but as it went on, it did sell more. Obviously, made into a trilogy, then bang, Game of Thrones comes out. What is your knowledge of Game of Thrones before?
I watched the first episode one Christmas in 2013 when it was at the absolute zenith of its popularity. Very drunk, wasn't paying attention, just wanted to play Civilization 5 instead. Other than that, it's just osmosis, just bits I have had ruined for me through gifts, through people trying to get me to watch it. Ex-girlfriend compared me to a character once, didn't get it. We'll get there.
We'll get there. So before we sat down and watched this, was there any names you knew were in this show, actor-wise?
Sean Bean, I know he dies because if Sean Bean doesn't die, we have
Sean Bean, right.
The universe is correcting itself because his name shouldn't be pronounced like that.
Yeah, Sean Bean.
Being Sean Bourne or Sean Bean, we're just going to keep killing you until you say your own name properly.
Yeah. Anyone else you knew was in this?
Citizen Mama.
Oh, yeah.
There's also
Lena Headey.
Lena Headey. She oozes evil.
Sorry, I can't do names. But we're going to get a lot of her as the season progresses. And you will both hate her, you'll love it. It'll be fucking great.
Love to hate. I am on the assumption that's the same with Joffrey Baratheon, who is played, from what I understand, played so perfectly that grown men and women who can't differentiate between fantasy and reality went after the gentleman playing him instead because they didn't realise he was a fictional character.
More on that as the season progresses. But so a lot of the characters that people will be memeing on, like Joffrey and people like Prince Oberyn, which you have no idea who the fuck that is yet.
Nope.
They come into it much later, but we've got the big name, so if I say someone like Tyrion Lannister, you know who that is. You know vaguely who that is.
Beat up Will Ferrell in the movie Elf. That was a satisfying scene.
Yes.
Sure to say, the character played by that actor, I can differentiate between fantasy and reality.
Yeah, good. So, shall we get straight on into the pilot? Now, a couple of things about this pilot. This is the second pilot they made.
Mm-hmm. I had no idea that.
The first pilot was incredibly over budget, and it was actually So they wrote the original pilot and they shot it in about 2009, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Morocco, where a lot of the things shot. And then in a private view, it was so badly received, and they basically went, "We got to change this, lads." They reshot the entire pilot, which is why when you see like the King's fucking the King arriving at Winterfell, rather than being this massive parade of horses and shit, there's about 4 Donnies on a horse.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, because they just didn't have the budget. But HBO was like, we'll give it a second go, lads. Even as some of the actors were changed, I know Emilia Clarke wasn't the original Daenerys Targaryen in the original unaired pilot. Talk about lost media. I want that pilot. I want to see that. I can't remember the actress's name, who it was, but I don't know if it was due to not being able to come back for the rest of the season. They changed it to Emilia Clarke, which as we get onto it, we will see more of. So just jumping straight into it, we start not with any of our main characters, but we start with the Night's Watch Beyond the Wall, which is a big 700-odd foot ice wall separating the north from the wildlands of Scotland. I mean,
What did he mean by that?
so we get some lads of north of the wall. Basically, they're the Night's Watch. They protect the Seven Kingdoms from the nasties beyond the wall, the wildlings, the Celts.
Okay, I'm going to assume there's a reason there is a watch if there's such a big wall that some of them are able to get through.
Yes.
Because if the wall is completely impenetrable, there need not be a night watch.
Yeah, so the canon in the background is the wall was built to keep out all these nasties that were used to live there and the wildlings. And then you put the Night's Watch there to basically keep watch. I'd go figure, keep watch on the
there's
wall.
an entire faction of World of Warcraft that meme on that because that expansion was released at the time of Game of Thrones.
I love the fact that you know that's through fucking World of Warcraft. Talk about wild osmosis.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
that's most of my understanding.
One of them lads beyond the wall come across a Tau circle, as you said.
Yeah, the Tau Empire circle made of some rather mutilated corpses, which I'm thankful for because it does not faff around with the violence.
Yeah,
it gets right
HBO, mate, HBO does not faff around when it comes to violence. We've got body parts, we've got limbs, we've got torsos, we got entrails, and it gets worse from there. And obviously he's a bit shocked by this, so he runs off to tell his mates. They don't believe him, so they go and investigate, and then suddenly everything's gone.
Absolutely no trace on the snow whatsoever, which is fascinating.
Not a trace. Not even
blood in the snow.
Except for I couldn't tell whether it was a bloody rag or some entrails a guy picked up.
Looked like a rag.
But shortly after that, we get our first glimpse, and I mean a glimpse, of the White Walkers. Now, Charlie, what was your impression of the White Walkers?
My idea of the White Walkers, from what I have seen and what I know, they aren't the antagonist as much as they are the looming threat. They are the doomsday clock on Watchmen.
Yeah, basically, pretty much. Yeah, they're like like I said, they're like the bogeyman. They're like the
been wiped out for 1,000 years, but now they're here because the plot demands it.
Yeah, basically, yeah. What did you get from the pilot? What did you see? Did you like what you saw?
Yes. I'm pretty fixed to say I've actually really enjoyed it this time.
Yeah.
I'm so paying attention.
It's incredible what happens when you're sober and watching it. Yes, so I like how I really enjoyed how we don't actually get a good look at them. They're all shot in shadows with these piercing blue eyes, which is one of our lads runs off and sees the reanimated corpse of a child with these, again, piercing blue eyes, and then everyone else dies. And that's how we open before we get into those lovely animated credits, which I don't know what you think of those credits, but that theme song as well. Did we enjoy the opening credits?
I did.
Very well made.
It stages things properly by putting it on a map, which means that triggers my geology brain. So
you go, that's where that is.
Yeah.
It's great. It really
contextualizes things because it really understands the North-South divide.
Yeah, it really does. It's really well done. I don't know how an American understood the North-South divide of England.
Yeah, I was under the assumption this was written by a person from the north of England. Because every southerner is a scheming, manipulating, alcoholic jackass, whereas the people from up north are proper hardy northern working folk, you know.
That's how it feels in the show, most definitely.
It does feel like it was made by a Yorkshireman with a chip on his shoulder.
Basically, everyone in the north, poor as shit. Everyone in the south, rich Uncle Moneybags. But then after that, we get our first look at Winterfell, which is the home of the Starks and Warden of the North, Sean Bean. But that's what the lone survivor of the Night's Watch from earlier has made himself north of the wall and deserted his post, which means he has now been captured. And then we get our first look at the Stark family. So what did you think of the old Stark family? What was your first impressions here?
They seem all right. They seem like good kids.
The
young sister seems like a troublesome little gremlin, and I automatically love it.
We got a good look at Robb Stark, the oldest, the heir to Winterfell. Brandon Stark, Bran, the youngest, who can't shoot a bow and arrow to save his fucking life.
But he can climb like an absolute goddamn champ.
He can climb like he's an auditor, yeah. Man's been playing that tutorial mission of AC2 over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get Sansa. I don't want to use the word stereotypical, but she is the lady of the family. Like, she's like, I'm going to marry the queen, the prince one day. Ooh, which is exactly how she is in the book, and she's played fantastically by Sophie Turner. I remember watching it, and this is the same thing. People could, like you were saying, some people couldn't differentiate fantasy from reality because people were fucking like, "Oh, I can't stand Sansa." I'm like, she's supposed to be like 14.
Yeah.
She's a 14-year-old, for lack of a better word, princess who can't wait to marry her prince and rule the kingdom.
Yes, and be queen and live happily ever after with a handsome, dashing prince. Because I'm sure everybody understands the difference between a character and the actor or actress playing them. We wouldn't go on the internet and harass them, would we?
I don't know if that happened, but
of course we wouldn't do something like that. It's a show for adults. Only adults watch it.
Yeah, fandom's a strange man.
I'm going to go out on a swim here and assume that Jon Snow is going to be our protagonist.
Jon Snow, right? So yeah, Jon Snow. What? Obviously, you've heard the name Jon Snow.
Yes.
I'm not talking about the Channel 4 news presenter,
nor the founder of the School of Epidemiology.
Anyone from US listens to this, they're not going to understand who that is. But what was your knowledge of Jon Snow before this? Spoilers aside.
Spoilers aside.
Yeah. Any major spoilers?
Bastard child related to Dragon Lady joins the Night Watch. That's basically what I know. Yeah, this is stuff I did not consent to being told, but people still memed at me.
Yeah, so Jon Snow is the bastard of Ned Stark, which I didn't pick up in the first episode, which explains the horrendous looks that Catelyn Stark, Ned's wife, gives him during that episode. Didn't pick up on that growing up.
Question is, Jon Snow, is he the firstborn? What's the deal there? Why did Ned Stark, who clearly loves his wife very much, why was he unfaithful? Was this before they were married?
We'll get more of that as we go into the series. They were married, but we'll get into that. We'll get more plot to that when we watch more of season 1.
I don't understand why Ned Stark just seems like a true Brexit geezer. He'd never do something.
A true Brexit geezer. Well, let's talk about Ned Stark. Oh, Sean Bean. What do we think of him, besides being just Sean Bean?
I like him. He seems like a very level-headed fellow in a setting full of characters who scheme as they breathe.
Pretty much, yeah. That is the whole point. He's supposed to be he's the lawful good.
Yeah,
truly. Lawful.
Every time I see a moral alignment chart, he's always lawful good.
Yeah, because as he says, if he passes the sentence when he executes the old Night's Watch guy for desertion, the man who passes the sentence should swing the sword. He's by the book, the law. If it's not honourable or not wrong or not right, he will not do it. So. Speaking of that, he executes the old Night's Watch guy. He mentions that the White Walkers are coming, and then everyone gets a bit scared.
Yeah, at first they dismiss it because they've been gone for a very long time.
We get some nice close-ups on people's faces where they're like, "Oh, is he telling the truth?" They're like, I don't
There's
know.
not really much reason for him to be lying in this situation. Maybe he is telling the truth.
Yeah. So then, obviously, Jon Snow says to Brandon, "Don't look away. Father will know if you do." And then we get nice father-son bonding time after a beheading. Everyone loves that.
Yeah,
we get to see that he really likes his family, and he's a family man at heart. So then we move on, and we get our first glimpse south of in the south. We get a good look at CGI King's Landing, which I promise does get better.
I imagine as the budget goes up.
Yeah, as the budget goes up, because you got to think none of the actors, even Sean Bean or the directors and writers, thought the show would be as big as it was. And then it suddenly went poof, and they got loads of budget because HBO realised they just fucking launched a rocket into space.
Yeah.
We get to see a corpse. First thing we see you get to see the Iron Throne. What did you think of the Iron Throne? Was this a thing you'd seen before?
Yes, through
osmosis.
So many different kinds of, different mannerisms of osmosis.
Yeah, I mean,
we could fill the podcast just with times I've seen it memed on in different things.
Yeah, the amount of memes I've seen of various characters sat on the Iron Throne. Deadpool was a big one. During the height of Game of Thrones, I remember Comic Cons would always have the Game of Thrones Iron Throne set that you can go up and take pictures on. You could not avoid the Iron Throne. Which is a great set piece as well.
Can assume there's a reason it's made of swords.
Yes, I can't remember it right now.
Is it like the big statue of the Buddha made of all the swords?
So if I'm correct, because I don't think it's explained, but if I'm correct, when one of the Targaryen kings from Yonks back conquered everyone, probably Aegon the Conqueror, someone will tell me if I'm wrong. He got all the swords that of the people that he defeated and melted them down, forged them into a big chair.
Mm-hmm. That's hardcore.
That is metal.
That is pretty. That is
That's
pretty good.
fucking metal. Yeah. And we get our first look at the Prince Charming, Jaime Lannister, by Nikolaj Coster-Waldau. Now, I remember when I first watched this, didn't think much of Jaime Lannister as a character. I thought he was just like, I genuinely thought Prince Charming, but with an evil side.
Again, from the osmosis, I'm under the assumption he gets better because he comes across as a
Jaime Lannister,
ocean liner of dicks.
I hope Jaime Lannister becomes one of your favourite characters because he does have a good arc as the series goes on, which it comes straight from the books as well. I'm halfway through book 2, and he's having a good arc in that. And we get our first glimpse of his twin sister Cersei, played by Lena Headey. What do we think of these two? What outside of cultural osmosis, what you probably already know, as just off watching the plot, what do we get from these?
I like them. They make such a wonderful juxtaposition from the straightforward, cold, stoic Ned Stark down to much nicer climate, but everyone seems like a scheming Machiavellian. No word spoken seems to be spoken sincerely.
Yeah, you get the feeling that they're talking in riddles almost. It's like, oh, whatever Jon Arryn did know died with him. What did he know? What do you know, Cersei? What are you worried about? Which we don't find out in this episode. But yes, Jon Arryn, Hand of the King, is dead. Do you know what the Hand of the King is?
Basically Vizier, isn't he?
He's
the man behind the front.
Yeah, he's the right-hand man. So we get this message delivered to Ned Stark in the Godswood, which is a fucking great bit of set. Massive white tree. Do you understand? Do you know what the Godswood is?
Vaguely.
So basically, in the north they worship the old gods. That's where they worship the old gods.
Yes, because Ned Stark's wife did mention that.
Yes, so she's from a place called River Run, which basically is the Midlands.
The bit everyone forgets exists.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it the north? Is it the south? Depends who you ask. She's from there. They worship different kind of god. Godswood, beautiful. I always like that, especially the opening shot you see of it, where he's cleaning his massive sword, his massive claymore under the Godswood, which is called Ice, by the way. That sword.
Nice.
I don't know if it ever gets mentioned, so I thought I'd drop it now.
I like Ned Stark and his wife.
Yeah, I think they've got good chemistry.
I'm under the assumption miserable things happen to all people, but I hope nothing bad happens to his wife.
Yeah.
I know about what happens to him through cultural osmosis.
Yeah, which we'll get to, not in this episode.
Oh God, no, we're only in one episode.
Yeah, we're only on fucking episode 1. So we get the news Jon Arryn's died, and the king is on his way.
Because he is besties with Ned Stark,
because
he wants him to be his new right-hand man.
Yeah, this is evident from the start. Even Ned says there's only one reason he'd come this far, and as Catelyn says, you can always say no, but you can't because you've sworn an oath to serve the king. So we get the lovely appearance of Mark Addy, fresh off the set of The Full Monty now.
Oh, goddamn!
Did you not realise that was
just quick?
He could well better than her. So the king arrives at Winterfell. Mark Addy, I think he plays this role fantastic.
I think he's brilliant.
Yeah. You just get the kind of king he is off the bat.
Yeah.
From the first words he says to Ned Stark, you got fat.
Offers him a hand, get up.
Get up. Don't grovel. Trying not to break into God from Monty Python and the Holy Grail on doing that. But yeah, you get exactly the kind of character Robert Baratheon is. And you get some lovely little hints through this bit. It's like, there's an estranged relationship with his wife, Cersei. I'm sure you picked up on that.
Yes, because he clearly bangs his way through everything, and I'm sure she's totally faithful and would never be an infidel.
I want you to serve me while I drink and whore my way to an early grave, as he says to. But yeah, the relationship, you don't see much of it in this episode, but what are you gathering from the relationship between him and the Lannisters?
Marriage of convenience in the most extreme.
Yeah, so they get there, and we get introduced to all of the lovely exposition introduction. I think
because he couldn't marry Ned Stark's sister, and he is clearly not over that. Yeah, that was clearly his one true parent. That is OTP, so he goes for Citizen Mama from Judge Dredd.
Yeah, straight away we get the nice introduction to all the Lannister children, except for Jon Snow, because he doesn't count, apparently. So we get Robb and everyone, and then straight into the crypt after a month of travelling.
Yep.
which
Cersei is clearly used to
Not
a life of
happy about
luxury,
this.
not happy that she's been on the road for a month.
while we're on the subject, let's talk about the difference in clothing, because costume design, big thing in the show.
One's pragmatic, one is pretty.
Yeah.
One is designed to be in the frozen north.
We see the north, and it's like hard-boiled leather,
Yep.
furs, and then Cersei gets out of that red flowing dress. Looks like a bit like she's described in the book as a lioness. Hence she's a Lannister. She's got to.
Yeah.
Beautiful blonde hair, red dress, golden fur. Such a juxtaposition in that cold Winterfell. And then we go to the crypt with Ned and what's his name? Robert. Fucking hell.
Robert Baratheon.
Yeah.
And he mentions he dreams every night of killing him. So I assume.
Yeah. So we get a nice look at.
I'm going to assume that's a Targaryen.
Yeah.
Judging by the
cut afterwards.
The contempt in his voice, the balls to the walls. I dream of killing the same man every night. I assume that's a Targaryen.
Yes, I will say that, but that is something we will see more of.
Don't spoil it for me, but that's just what I assume.
But that's put over in the cut. So we see he's clearly in mourning over Ned Stark's sister, which is a loss, as you say. I don't think he ever got over.
That's why he's filling the gap with whoring.
Yeah, basically, probably.
He can't have the porterhouse steak, so the Russell Burger will have to do in thousands.
Yeah. So in this moment, Rob Baratheon decides to name Ned Hanging the King, and even says that Sansa can marry Joffrey, which is his son. And then, we get a bit, as you said, we get a bit of backstory that Ned helped Robert seize the Iron Throne. Again, that's something that will come up more as the season progresses.
Yeah, it seems to be post the big thing.
Yes,
the big thing is the big slap fight for who gets to be king.
Well, years before the big thing, but we're in this period now where another big thing is going to happen. It's such a weird.
We're in a nice, calm sandwich between big thing and big thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's no. I mean, you when I first asked you what you knew about Game of Thrones, you said it's based on the War of the Roses, which basically is King died, two other kings went, I'm in charge now. Big war ensued. I mean, you're not far off with that. That's basically how this goes down.
Between Lancashire and Yorkshire, and I'm sure there's lots of differences. They totally don't sound exactly alike outside. Yeah, I would never say something like that.
But as you say, it's like the war took place a few years ago, and we've missed that, and now we're seeing the fallout from it. And then, as you say, it mentions that not all the Targaryens are dead. Cut to across the narrow sea to Pentos, and we meet Daenerys Targaryen
and her twink brother,
and
the murder twink,
and her very creepy brother Viserys.
Yes, who
proclaims himself rightful king of Westeros because
going to assume his dad was defeated by Robert Baratheon, and that's why he wants to throw him back. Or words to that effect. Because that's one thing I've really liked about this first episode. It hits the perfect sweet spot for me of exposition.
I've shown you enough, but not telling you other things.
Yes.
It's giving you the hints. It's sowing the seeds.
Not James Gunning me by just dumping everything. I won't go on a tangent, but James Gunn can do that. He dumps huge exposition in such an inorganic manner. Or you could get something which is steeped in symbolism, and I don't know what the toot is going on. For me, Game of Thrones hits just the right spot that it never feels intrusive, but it never takes too long.
Yeah, that's fine.
Case in point, the murder twink, who gropes his sister, and it's creepy.
Yeah. You don't want to wake the dragon, do you? Yeah, it played great. I can't remember the actor's name, but the actor who plays Viserys, fucking great at being...
Great job, murder twink.
Horrendous. Going back to what you were saying about exposition, where we're meeting everyone in Winterfell, you just get these whispers about. You just get Arya every now and going, "Where's the imp? Where's Tyrion?" We've not met Tyrion yet. Fucking Jaime and Cersei didn't mention Tyrion 3 scenes ago. So I like that. There's like this weird, where is he? I want to see the freak.
If I were to go to this, if I were to live under a rock for the last 15 years and actually be allowed to go into this blind, I'd be like, why is he called an imp?
Yeah.
Why are they calling him that? Is he a creep? Is he another creep that gropes his sister? I hope not. We already have one.
But yeah, fast forwarding back to Daenerys. brother gives her a gown and it's like, basically, she's being married off.
Mhm.
And with the
To
hope,
someone she clearly does not want to marry.
yes,
And
with
we've done that.
the hopes of Viserys raising an army from this marriage that he can take back the Iron Throne that he's never sat on.
Yes.
And then we get our first look at the very handsome man that is Jason Momoa. Obviously, you knew Jason Momoa was in this.
I know of what was going on behind the scenes whilst he was being a bit forward, and he was super apologetic and really nice.
Yeah.
But on screen, he genuinely made me feel uncomfortable. He was big and scary.
Yeah, he is big and scary, especially when they shoot him from an upward angle, so he looks massive. Especially when he's sat on a horse, he just has permanent "fuck you" face, for lack of a better word. Great.
Permanent 1,000-yard stare. That is pretty menacing. And there is a guy who seems pretty schemy, which is par for the course.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Chancellor.
Yeah, Illyria, Magister. Illyria.
That is the one we're after.
Yeah, because Pentos. So a bit of context: Pentos isn't in the Seven Kingdoms. It's like.
Yeah, I saw that at the beginning.
It's off to the side. It's like if you were to flip it, it'd be where Ireland is to the UK. But it's nothing like.
It looks more like Greece.
Yeah, I mean, it's shot more like the Mediterranean, which is very strange.
What did he mean by this?
I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish we could ask him. But yeah, so you got all these, as you'll see when we go on. So he's like a magister, and he has this big fuck off mansion, and he's not asking for anything from these because he thinks he's going to. As Viserys says, he knows he'll get paid when he gets when Viserys gets the throne. So Drogo rides up, sees Daenerys, and then fucks off again.
Mm-hmm.
And as Illyria says, trust me, if he didn't like her, we would know. Which is a horrifying thought.
Yeah, he does. He sort of gives the. Yeah, she'll do. Kind of look.
Yeah, it kind of looks at her. It doesn't even nod or anything. Just goes.
Yeah. Right.
Then we get to the feast, which I think is a great scene. You see, Ned and Catelyn don't want to go.
The Lannisters look very uncomfortable.
Everyone looks very uncomfortable. Fucking hell. You got Cersei sat next to Catelyn, who just look two different kinds of people. Mm-hmm. A great juxtaposition. Like you got Catelyn dressed in cottons and then Cersei in silks and stuff. How she's not freezing, I don't know. But both of them are watching a crowned Robert snug up with one of the maids. And we just get the image of how strained this marriage is. Yeah. And I don't think either of them give a shit about each other.
Not particularly, no.
So outside, Jon Snow slapping up a...
venting his frustration because he's a bastard child who isn't allowed in case he acts like an embarrassment.
Yeah. Then we get Uncle Benjen rides up. Uncle Benjen being Ned Stark's brother.
Captain of the Night Watch?
Yeah, so he's not the captain, but he's a ranger of the Night's Watch, which is a different... Basically, he's one of the soldiers for the Night's Watch.
John wants to join.
John wants to join the Night's Watch because he's a bastard, and what else is he going to do with his life?
Yeah.
So Uncle Benjen's like, we'll talk about it later. And then he rides off. But then Tyrion appears, and we get, I think, one of the best introductions. I've completely missed out Tyrion's introduction. What did you think of this?
I deeply enjoyed Tyrion's introduction. It kept being foreshadowed that he's a hedonistic imp, and that's exactly what we get.
Yeah, we get him chugging on a beer, and suddenly a woman's head appears and some breasts, and you're like, oh,
titties. This
man, he might be...
must have difficulty tying his shoelaces, that she had to go down and help him.
Yeah, must have, yeah. PG show, yeah. So Tyrion's a hedonistic pimp, very intelligent. In the books, he is a horrifying specimen of man. Like, he's got two different coloured eyes, his head's deformed and all sorts. Peter Dinklage plays it fantastically.
Yes, from what I understand, that's kind of
my prediction is Tyrion will be your favourite character, because Tyrion's everyone's favourite character.
Yeah, I'm getting that vibe.
Yeah. Then Jaime Lannister rocks up and is like, oh, what's all this then?
Because I get the vibe that Jaime genuinely cares for his little brother.
I think so. I think there's a care there. Because you get this, it's like, oh, brother, what are you like?
Well, brother, you're never going to make anything in the court because you're a goddamn dwarf.
Yeah. Oh, brother, we got things to do. So here's 50 women for you to sleep with. See you in a bit.
I support your career as a professional speedrunner. Here's some more whores to speedrun.
Pretty much what happens, yeah.
He seems like a nice dude.
you get the vibe that none of the Lannisters like being in the North, because Jaime straight away says, "Don't leave me alone with these people," which is something that Tyrion later reinforces when we go back to him meeting Jon Snow for the first time, where he says, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Preparing for a night with your family." It's like no one gets on, no one wants to be here. I mean, the start.
I can relate. It's a lot like my family reunion.
But then you get the lovely. I think it's one of the great moments of the first season where Tyrion calls Jon Snow a bastard, and Jon's clearly hurt by it.
Yeah,
and Tyrion says, "Don't never forget what you are. The world will not wear it like armor, and it can never be used to hurt you." Fucking amazing dialogue.
Oh, that's the stuff. It's like, what do you know about being a bastard? Every dwarf is a bastard in their father's eyes.
Yeah,
I'm going to go out on a swim here and assume his father is going to be Tywin Lannister.
Mayhaps.
We won't get there yet because while we were watching, there was a little bit of back and forth, a bit of talking. I will not speak while Charles Dance is on the screen because he will turn, face the camera, and I will immediately shut up. I will not speak in Charles Dance's presence.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, so while we're on costume design, Tyrion's outfit, great. He's got that nice purple. Jaime's Kingsguard outfit, great, gold. I'm pretty sure in the book he's got like a helmet which has 3 lions on it. Maybe that's later, but again, great outfit. The only one you had an issue with is the Hound.
Because it looked goofy.
It looked silly. Goofy. Where he's fucking... I mean, I'm pretty sure I've watched a interview with Rory McCann where he says the same thing. He's like, "This looks fucking stupid."
It looked goofy. It took me out of the scene. It was such a good scene. Then he shows up with his metal fursona. It looked like a fursuit.
I think the biggest issue of it is the bottom jaw goes like it flaps when he's on his horse.
Yeah.
And then you get him in the next scene where Tyrion's recovering from a fucking hangover, and the Hound sat next to him, and he's like talking shit to him. The Hound is a character we will see more of, and he is a great character.
Where does he fall on the moral chart?
Wherever the fuck he wants to be honest.
From what I understand, I get that vibe.
Yeah, wherever he wants to. Yeah, so then we get I think moving along, we get the next shot of go back to Daenerys, don't we? Where they're having their wedding celebration,
which is somehow even more awkward because people are dying.
Yeah, people are dying. People are fucking then dying.
People are dying because they were fucking.
But as Illyrio says, a Dothraki wedding without at least 3 deaths is considered a dull affair. What a kind of party! And then, did you recognise any of the actors that turned up in this scene? Specifically, the one that hands her a set of books.
He did tickle my brain pick.
So that is Ian Glenn. He's been in so much stuff. Apparently, I watched an interview with Sean Bean, and someone asked him, is there any actor he gets confused with? And apparently he used to get confused with Ian Glenn when he was much younger, which is fucking hilarious that they're in the same show. Yeah, he is Jorah Mormont of Bear Island.
That was Bear Island then. I thought I misheard it.
No,
it's actually
Bear Island.
I thought I misheard it.
So he's a northerner, which is evident because he's clearly not Dothraki. But he hands her a book of the histories and songs of the 7 kingdoms.
So that's how you know he's a civilized person, because he gives her
books.
You look like a nerd. Have some books.
And then
please help me.
And then Magister Illyrio completely outdoes anyone at that party and gives her dragon eggs. 3 of them.
Those will hatch into dragons. That is very much Miss Oil for me.
That you already know that? Or was he called? Yeah.
But obviously, he's just going to give her a dragon egg.
I mean, there was. Yeah, we'll get to that. But in the book, it's a lot more. So he says that they've been turned to stone, but in the book, like I'm pretty sure it mentions when she feels them, she can feel that they're warm still, or something like that. Words to that effect. But great little plot device to move along with. Back to Winterfell, everyone's off on the old hangover hunt. Everyone's gone out to hunt a boar, as done with the king. We
skipped over Cersei and Sansa. Her trying to be nice, yes. And Cersei just being a complete...
Yeah, so Sansa comes at the feast. Good point, Charlie. Mm-hmm. I think at this point, she's been told that Robert plans to marry the 2 houses together. So basically, I think it's done as like a bribe to make Ned Stark feel like he has to take Hand of the King. I don't know if you picked up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it means that although he will be Order of Winterfell, eventually his line will become the king.
Yeah, as long as it's matrilineal. I've played Crusader Kings.
Yeah.
But yeah, their houses will be binding, and as Sansa says to Catelyn, she will be the second most powerful man in the realm. So yeah, you get a very straight, like everything Cersei says to Sansa is a compliment, but it feels like it's got a knife attached to it.
Yeah. Underneath the smile, she's saying, Jesus Christ, that dress is hideous, burn it now.
Yeah, did you make your dress? Yes.
It's lovely, make me something.
Yeah. Have you bled yet? Oh, move along.
Which I assume on the surface is her inquiring about getting it there, but is specifically designed to clearly make her uncomfortable as a power play.
Yeah, that was a very uncomfortable. I mean,
the deal I get from Cersei is that basically any character in that show would beat her in a fist fight, but no one can beat her verbally. That's her character.
Yeah, except for maybe Tyrion. I would argue.
I've seen Elf. Tyrion would mess her up.
Yeah, except for maybe Tyrion. They're the two. If you want, Jaime is very much the brawn of the Lannisters. Cersei and Tyrion are the brains, but I think Tyrion has got more brains than Cersei.
Yeah,
but both of them I wouldn't want to play chess with, if you get my meaning.
Even if she wasn't good at chess, she'd still get in your head somehow.
Yeah, after the feast as well, we get a scene where we get a letter to Catelyn from her sister, who was married to Jon Arryn, and it says that Jon Arryn was murdered by the Lannisters
because he just so happened to get a fever out of nowhere.
Yeah, and his fever came out of nowhere and suddenly died and killed him the next day. I really like this scene because it essentially frames it as the devil and angel on Ned Stark's shoulder. You got Catelyn telling him to go. No, Catelyn telling him he can't go. He has to stay because it's dangerous. And then on the other side, you got Maester Llewellyn telling him he has to go. He swore an oath to the king, and what better way to protect the king than to go?
He's now between a rock and a hard place because the Lannisters will clearly try to fever him off, but that's still his best mate.
Yeah, and again, if Rob only trusts Ned, who better to protect them?
That he's saying that he only has one friend left.
Yeah,
kind of implying maybe there's more to work there.
Except for Drink.
Of course, but Drink's everyone's friend. As long as you respect it, it's everyone's friend.
Yeah, and then so going back to the marriage celebration because we, as I said, we actually skipped over that. After the presents, we get Khal Drogo's present to Daenerys, which was a horse, very nice looking horse, a silver horse, which. In the book, for some reason, it makes a big issue that she never names it. She just calls it the Silver.
That's still a name.
That's still a name, yeah.
The linguistic in me is triggered by the fact that they have no concept of thank you. They have no word for thank you. There's going to be a word for thank you in every language. I understand it's because they're hardcore. I understand it's because they're punchy.
I think it's a similar thing I think in Star Trek they did the same thing with Klingon language. Yeah. But yeah, like you say, it swings and roundabouts. The Dothraki language in the show is completely made up for the show. It mentions that they have their own language in the book, but it doesn't not like in Lord of the Rings where it's written in Elvish or
Yeah.
They had a linguist make up the Dothraki language for the show. So,
they mentioned something I always love seeing in fantasy settings: the common tongue. Because you're going to have people of different nations. There's no means for them to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
That is something I always appreciate.
And you can't call it English.
No,
because English doesn't exist. That's how they got around it in Star Wars. They got Galactic Basic.
Yeah.
And then you just change the name of the alphabet as well. Yeah. It's a great little way of doing it. And then we get a very awkward scene with Khal Drogo.
Yes, that was a bit.
Yeah, they consummate the marriage, shall we say, but one of them does not want to do this.
No, one is clearly uncomfortable.
Yeah. I think the only one enjoying this is Viserys, to be honest. Yeah. Then we go back to Winterfell, where we...
Pig
hunt time. To try and get the best look at it, Bran decides to go climbing, which he promised not to do.
And then... the plot gets interesting.
I forgot we didn't even mention the direwolves earlier.
We did not. I assume that's going to be significant later on.
Yeah, so earlier on we find some direwolves. Their mother had been absolutely antlered by a stag. And there's 5 of them, one for each of the Stark children, and a little white one for
The little red-eyed white runt of the litter for John.
for John.
There's symbolism because he's not properly one of them.
Yeah.
That's a mean-spirited joke. I take that back. It's actually been a good show so far.
Yeah, but you are right. That is the full symbolism of that scene, and there's more to that we will get onto later.
Very friendly puppies.
Very incredibly
weirdly friendly puppies.
Yeah, and Mahusov. So Bran leaves his dog at the bottom of a map of a thing and goes to the old vantage point where he doesn't vantage the hunting party. He vantages Jamie banging.
Just getting his end away.
Yeah, I know. Shock horror, it's his sister. Which I'm sure, for cultural osmosis,
yes.
I think you already.
What bothers me is nothing has really shocked me so far. Because it's all been room for cultural osmosis.
Yep, I'm sure we will get to things that you haven't heard.
I hope so.
I'm sure.
Because if I hadn't,
8 seasons
because that would have absolutely curveballed me if I hadn't known about the Wincest.
Yeah, So then Jamie's like, whoa, where are you going? How old are you?
Then for the first time, she genuinely freaks out. For the first time, she's actually compromised.
She feels compromised, like someone has seen this secret. He's like, how are you? Oh, things I do for love. And then Jamie yeets him out of a window.
Which he clearly dies from. No way he could survive that. No way.
And then that's how the episode ends.
Yeah.
Which is probably why people tuned into the second episode, because it's certainly why I carried on watching.
It was pretty intriguing fantasy drama until the Wincest and the child murder.
So what makes this scene different from in the book is, in the book, when trying to scurry away, Bran slips, and Jamie grabs him and saves him, and then pushes him back out the window, which is slightly worse than just pushing him out the window. But either way, you get the point across that they're fucking bastards. Yeah.
Which I imagine this adds a whole new layer to the fact that she's clearly in an unhappy marriage with someone who is processing the death of his OTP by fucking everyone forever.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Robert Baratheon certainly is doing.
Yep.
But yeah, this does add a massive layer to the relationship and all the issues surrounding that.
I'm going to go out on a whim here. Assume that Joffrey is the son of Jaime. There is a reason other than cultural osmosis that I've worked that out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you mentioned in the book, Rob, he's wearing a big stag helmet at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The stag is seen as the symbol of people who are into that kind of thing with their wives.
I see what you mean.
I don't ask me. I don't know that because that's my thing. I know that because people tell me these things.
Sorry, I don't know what you mean, Charlie.
No kink shaming, no judging people who are into that kind of thing. But I hate it that I can't wear a T-shirt with the symbol of the Wood Elves from Warhammer Fantasy because people assume I watch people with my wife.
Right, so the stag thing is the house, the sigil for the House Baratheon. That's why he has it as antlers, like fucking years prior, which is mentioned in the book, not mentioned here. But yeah, that brings us to the end. Unless we missed anything else that you can think of, that brings us to the end of the episode.
Hunting pigs. Not as good with his spear, but he's still better than Robert Baratheon. I enjoyed their bands.
That was,
I enjoyed that one's a miserable bastard. One's a big, jolly, happy guy, and one's a miserable bugger.
What does that remind you of, Adam? I don't know, Charlie. I don't know where that reminds me. But very good. I really enjoyed watching this again.
I enjoyed watching it.
The pilot was a lot better than I thought it was. That I remember it being. Don't get me wrong. I remember really enjoying the pilot. 2011, 2012 when I first watched it. But going back to it again, it's still a really good episode of TV. It's got a lot of intrigue in it. As you say, the exposition is balanced. You're getting told enough, and enough is implied.
It feels just organic enough.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think it is a shame that a lot has been spoiled for you through cultural osmosis. But I hope it's things that, in a way, you're still like, but how or
it's now the journey of how I get there that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, good old.
I want to know why the Mandalorian gets squished by Evil Eddie Hall.
Yeah, which is a great way of putting that in non-spoiler terms. But you've got I will say you've got a while till that
magic nuke.
Who are you to pad this episode out? But who are you looking forward to seeing most grow as a character.
Jamie Lannister.
Jamie Lannister is going to be.
I get the vibe he doesn't
big
want to be
player.
a turd blossom, but he's the son of Charles Dance, and it's hard not to be.
We'll see where that goes.
How long till we get Charles Dance?
I can't remember.
Hoping soon.
It's either this season or the second season. I can't remember where he turns up, but he does. I know it's in either the first or second season that he turns up. So you won't have to wait too long. So we've got 9 episodes of the first season left.
Can assume, although the White Watchers, they clearly are force of nature threat.
Yeah.
The Murder Twink is our straight antagonist.
Murder Twink.
I forgot his name, so I'm just going to refer to him.
Viserys.
Yep.
In a sense, yeah. So he's one of the
the antagonist. He is the one, the protagonist, as opposed to.
Yeah, so he's like the secondary antagonist, I guess, at this point, because he's not a nice man.
No, he doesn't.
He's certainly for the story arcs. You got for the north and the Night's Watch. You've got the White Walkers. Then you've got for the Daenerys storyline and Robert Baratheon. You've got the Targaryens, and even for Daenerys, her villain, you could say, because she's being manipulated by him, is her brother Viserys. So, in a sense, yes, he is one of our antagonists. And there's going to be plenty more to come.
Good. There's a dude who skins people who was supposedly super duper evil.
Yep.
I
know who you mean. We'll get to him.
We get there. Like I say, it's just these vague whispers and hints of stuff I know about Game of Thrones.
The whispers on the wind. Like, oh, what's this? Oh, is that a spoiler? I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, Game of Thrones I'm going to really look forward to watching this again. And hopefully you can edit this episode to make it fucking coherent.
I hope so.
Yeah. But it's been a good watch, I think. I think we're going to really enjoy it, because it only gets better from here. Like, there might be some episodes, like with every show, there's some episodes where it just goes, meh.
You get those.
Yeah.
Then, in the last 10 minutes, shall we address the elephant in the room? I'm under the assumption it eventually gets bad. Really bad.
Okay, so let's talk about this, right? So I want to give it some good things. So what you're going to see as it goes on is you're not going to just watch characters develop. You got to bear in mind that a lot of these people, especially Jon Snow and Sansa and Jack Gleeson, who plays, I think that's his name, who plays Joffrey, and Nikolai Coster-Waldau for lack of a better phrase. A lot of these actors, this is their first big gig, especially the Stark kids. You're not going to only see their characters develop, but you're going to see them develop as actors. So their acting's only going to get better.
That's good.
And we do have, I will say, a lot more, because it's well known, the decline of Game of Thrones. It's like the fucking rise and fall of the Roman Empire. We have a lot more good than there is bad.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. And when we get to those episodes where things start getting a bit rocky, I will try, especially after the finale, I will try to explain why I think, or what the prevailing theory is to why things got super scuffed. But for the most part, you're in for a treat. And there's a lot.
It's only a few bad seasons and lots of good ones, isn't it? But it's not like Supernatural where you can...
No, it did not outstay its welcome, I don't think.
That's good.
If anything, it could have stayed around a bit longer.
Yeah, it's the opposite, because everything gets rushed. They try to condense loads of stuff into a few episodes.
Yes,
and it
for lack of a better theory, that is one reason that people speculate the last few seasons got too bad. Other theories are that they ran out of material, because, as I mentioned earlier, George R. R. Martin still writing. He's been writing The Winds of Winter fucking ages now, since the end of the last book, which was in 2011.
Jeez, 14 years. It's going for 14 years.
Something along those lines, yes. But genuinely, very good time is ahead with what we've got. I'm just looking up how long he's been writing this book. Yeah, about 2010, he started writing The Winds of Winter. At that point, we had just had season 1 start, I do believe. So he's been writing it as long as the show has been around. I think this is great. I think we're going to be in for a good treat. And I hope we do come across some big things that have not been spoiled for you.
I hope there's one curveball which comes out of nowhere that I have absolutely no idea of, just so I can actually be surprised.
Yeah, I can think of a few things that you haven't mentioned to me in private, so I'm hoping that you don't know what they are, and I'm not going to mention them to you in case any sleeper agent, cultural osmosis, Winter Soldier catchphrases trigger something in your brain.
You guessed, but that probably would happen.
Yeah, legit, that happens to me sometimes. I'll read something spoilery about something I want to watch and be like, oh, fuck, best not see anything.
God damn it, just remembered something else. No, not going to think about it, not going to talk about it. I'm just going to force it in the brain and assume I'm remembering wrong. I'm just going to hope I'm remembering wrong until I'm proven right.
I'll ask you what it is when we're not recording.
Oh, well, afterwards I'll tell you.
Yeah. But did you enjoy Game of Thrones?
Yes, I massively enjoyed it. Very much hyped for the next episode. Yes, I am.
Yeah. Where do you think we're going with this next episode based on how this one ended?
Well, I know Bran does not die, he just ends up crippled.
Yeah.
I assume there's going to be further exposition leading into the death of the original Hand of the King. Charles Motherfudging Dance is going to show up. Remind us why he's the evil Ian McKellen.
That's a great way of putting it. Just needs a knighthood.
Tyrion will continue to pimp roll around. Hopefully there'll be more blood and violence because the show does not faff around, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, but I can promise you there will be more blood and violence.
That's good.
That was one thing that I think through cultural osmosis you probably knew about Game of Thrones. Sex, blood and violence. But it's a HBO show, so of course it's going to have that.
As an aside, this brings me back to a conversation we were having earlier. Another genuine S-tier epic rap battle of history was George R.R. Martin versus J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yes, that was a very good one. That was a very good one. With some actual good points. It's like, what? Let's go.
Professor Tweedpants, we don't need the backstory in every fucking tree branch. That one always gets a game.
That is a good one. What did you think? What? I'm trying to think of a way of wording this. So, is it the kind of thing where you are wishing you'd read the book first, or
no?
100%.
Experience has taught me. Watch it, then read it.
Yeah,
that's what Watchmen, which is why I enjoyed both of the film Watchmen and the book.
That's a different story altogether.
Maybe one day.
As far as I'm aware, George R. R. Martin has not relinquished his hands of the show. So
no, that's probably why Alan Moore is just such a big grumpy dumpy all the time because he's not allowed to have the thing he invented.
Well, no, he gets on board with it and then just goes, I'm not doing this anymore.
We couldn't podcast about Watchmen as an adaptation because it would just be me ranting at you for hours straight.
Yeah, that's why I picked the show we're doing.
If we make it all the way to Game of Thrones and we need a new show, I've already picked what I have seen and you haven't seen.
What is that?
Gravity Falls.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Go into as blind as possible.
I know some things about it, but not like
what do you know? Just give me the rapid fire of what you do know.
It's basically about
Twin Peaks for kids.
Twin Peaks for kids. It's got a lot of deep lore.
Yeah.
Grunkle Stan.
I cosplayed him once, it was great.
And Bill Cipher.
Yes, he's a great demon of Zinch. That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, that's just little things I know. I don't know yet.
J.K. Simmons. We get J.K. Simmons and he improves everything.
Yeah. I wish J.K. Simmons was in Game of Thrones. That would have been incredible. That's what I was going to ask. Does Game of Thrones, because obviously earlier we were talking, you said, when I asked you what you thought about Game of Thrones, you mentioned it being stereotypical North good, South bad. Has it reminded you of any other fantasy stuff that maybe came before or after?
Every RPG that is not D&D, every time they try to deviate from D&D, it will always go nice and grim. For some reason, the North is poor, therefore the North is virtuous. The South is wealthy, therefore the South is sinful.
So it's a bit like Elder Scrolls.
Yes.
Except Elder Scrolls, the centre was the rich bit and everywhere else was poor.
Then it was less the nobility of poverty and the sacredness of the duty of the wall, and more of just racism against elves.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, that was what did he mean by that? But yeah, this has been a great watch. And I can't wait to watch more. Same time next week. Not next week.
You're working.
I'm working next week. Well, next time we have chance. So Charlie, sign us off.
Well, this has been And So Our Watch Begins. It's been great it's been great talking to everybody today. I hope our lovely voices have kept you entertained.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week.
And the next episode will definitely be just as chaotic.
Even more chaotic as I get more comfortable talking.
Yeah,
Then-
that's it.
As the more we get, the more I will tangent. So I will leave off with this: Murder Twink.
Goodbye.